to visit 45 countries on 5 continents so far. He's a profound writer of over 30 books on leadership and career success, some of which have even reached the Amazon bestseller list. He was the 2011 Spirit of Caps recipient, the highest honor bestowed in the Canadian-speaking industry. He's on a mission to visit and present at each of our GSF member associations. This is the 5th GSF's visit to date. He presented in Cape Town, South Africa this April. Please help me give a warm welcome to Bob Hooey.
Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. I heard that when I was a kid. That was a nursery rhyme. The truth of it is, how many of you understand that sometimes words can hurt you? Sometimes words can be detrimental to your life and your growth, and sometimes even your well-being. On January 7th, here in Paris, people woke up to find a massacre had happened to the staff of Charlie Hebdo because of a stupid cartoon and some words that people were offended about and decided to take drastic action and massacre them. Words can hurt us. They can be detrimental to who you are. I have a funny last name, Hooey. Although in French it would be Hooey, which would be funnier. And I grew up being made fun of, like Baby Hooey and Full of Hooey, although I've got fullofhooey.com website now, it's okay. But, you know, I grew up having that experience that sometimes kids and people are not always nice. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that sometimes people can be downright mean and nasty? And that's just your family. But words can make a difference. And I believe that what we're doing in this industry is building relationships with the words and the actions of our lives, which is why we call it building bridges. When you build a bridge, you invite people in. You allow them to come in. And you can reach out and say, let's get together, let's talk, let's have some fun, let's explore some ideas. Let's do things that make a difference in the world. Because it does. We can use our influence to inspire and to impact the world around us. We can use it for negative reasons. How many of you would agree that Adolf Hitler was probably an inspiring kind of guy? He may not have been a fun guy to be around because he was a vegetarian, he was a little bit weird, but he was inspiring. He inspired the German people at a time in their history where they needed a real leader to become monsters. It's taken generations for them to live down. How about Stalin? Do you think he had any influence on the people in his country? Most likely. But for the bad. For the bad. Sebastian just mentioned the Grand Palace. I was just there yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yesterday. And I saw a statue of another man. There's a whole bunch of statues. But this one is Winston Churchill, who inspired his nation and the world to stand up and to speak and to fight for freedom. You see, the day after the massacre at Charlie Hebdo, things happened and the rest of us around the world heard about it when people were showing up saying, I am Charlie. We woke up in North America to say, what's that? What is this? There were tens of thousands of people running in the streets here saying, I am Charlie. They were speaking in defense of freedom of speech and freedom of the press. And they were saying, we won't stand for this. We're going to be here to say, we will not stand for this massacre and this. Remember that? Maybe some of you were there. I believe that that is our job. I believe as speakers, that is sometimes our job, to be the person who stands up to the bullies. To be the person who stands up to the evil in the world and say, not anymore. Not another inch. Winston Churchill, it says right on the thing, June 4th, 1940. We shall not surrender. 4 words. Now he said a few other words to go along with it. But 4 words that galvanized his country and reached out to the U.S. and other countries around the world to say, we will not let this dictator win. We will not let this oppression of freedom continue. We're going to fight for it because it's worth fighting for. I believe that. I'm speaking to you as some of you are brand new speakers, some of you want to be speakers, some of you have been around for a while. That's our job. Let's not forget what our job is. The world is in crisis, folks. How many of you understand that China is having a meltdown? How about what's happening in the European Union with Greece and some of the other members that are having their challenges? Is that affecting you? Do you think that will affect your industry? Do you think that will infect and affect your ability to get paid to be a speaker? As budgets are slashed? As people are making changes that sometimes impact the people who work for them and the people around them? Do you think that will impact them? Do you think that will impact you? Have you asked yourself the question, how do I make a difference so that I can still help? See, I have a belief that in times of crisis, the leaders emerge. I believe that at times of crisis, the people with good conscience and good ideas step forward. And people follow them because they're right. During times of crisis, they sell more Cadillacs and Lincolns in the States than they ever do during the times when things are tough, not so tough. Why? Because people have got the money, they'll spend it, they'll do it. I believe as speakers, we bring that to the floor. I believe as speakers, we bring that because that's who we are. When we're going through a tough time in the world, and we are, people need help, and they need hope, and that's our business. Because if you think about it, what do you actually do as a speaker? You give people hope that they can change, that they can grow, that they can be more successful, that they can have brands that catch and capture the attention of people around the world. And on the other hand, you give them help on how do you get there. Does that excite you? Does that excite you? It should. Because when you read these headlines and see them on TV, that's an opportunity saying, pick me, send me in to do it. Because I have the expertise. I have the experience. I have the will and the heart to make a difference in the lives of those who listen. That should excite you. You should be rallying in the streets to say, there are speakers in France today that can make a difference in your business and a difference in your career and a difference around the world. And that's building a bridge. I'm going to give you a little bit of back history on building bridges. Because I think sometimes the people you meet as you go through life will open doors for you. I honestly believe that. Looking back, it's more obvious to me than it was at the time it happened. But looking back sometimes is a great way of learning history, and then taking the history to learn the lesson that will make you successful and remain successful in the future. It's called mining your past. I just heard that from somewhere. I don't know where. I love this. I bought this at Sakrakura the other day because I thought, if nothing else, if I wear it, I can write it off because it's a business expense. No. And it gave me an excuse to play. Although I honestly feel I should be singing "Every Little Bruise Sings to a Whisper." That's just, I don't know what it is. I put the hat on and then that came out. But let me tell you a backstory. We started CAPS back in 1997. I realize that's another century for most of you, but that's okay. I'm actually younger than I look, or maybe I'm older than I look, I'm not sure which. But 1997 was a good year in so many ways, because that was also the birth of the International Federation of Professional Speakers, which became the GSF. And CAPS went from being an NSA chapter called the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, with two little sub-chapters, one in Calgary, one in Vancouver, that I helped start, to being a national organization that now has 10 chapters. That's not the story. The story is our first conference in Calgary. A lady from the stage, Janet Lapp, came up and she was speaking, and she said, by the way, we're doing a Western workshop in LA. How many of you would like to come and be part of that? See, that's what happens. You reach out, you build a bridge, and you invite people to come. And there were a bunch of us, maybe a dozen of us Canadians, that we'll come. And we thought, what can we do? And I got a whole bunch of Canadian pins, like there's a bunch here for every single one of you, just to make sure that you take that. Because being a Canadian, an honorary Canadian, is a pretty big deal. It is. You get to bump into people and you can say, sorry. Because we're very apologetic people. You know, we apologized to the Nazis when we were killing them on Juno Beach. That's not funny, but it's true. Think about it. But I've got pins for you. So I thought we could get pins. And I went to Canadian Airlines, and they had a magazine. It was a gold cover because it was their 50th anniversary. And I said, I need 650 copies. And the guy said, well, how would you, well, I'll just take my briefcase. He said, you know, that's like 20-some boxes. I said, could you deliver? So we put together a Canadian night at the NSA workshop in LA that year. And all of a sudden, Janet comes up and she says, Bob, you're the ambassador from Canada. I want you to get up and speak on the main stage. And I went, no. She said, why? And I said, there's people in that audience. I got their books and tapes. I had visions if I get up there and had a problem, end of career, right there, done, gone, finished. And she said, no, you'll be fine. Because you've done this, you created this thing, we've got a coffee house and we got all this stuff. So I got up and I shared for just a few minutes. And people started laughing and heckling. And I said, it's good to have your family. They're going to make it interesting for you. And I found out that I could handle hecklers. Dave Gordon came up to me and he said, Bob, you're funny. We're doing our convention in Washington next year. I'm president next year. Would you help me? Still not the story. Still not the story. I came back. 3 days later, my dad passed away. Tough time in my life. We'd started our chapter. I had originally said that I would be chapter president a year later. At the end of that summer, I got a phone call, beginning of September, good morning, Mr. President. And I thought, what have you been smoking? You've obviously been to Amsterdam, you're just not making sense here. And he said, no. He said, Bill Clinton, who was our current president, came back from spending 2 months in Ireland and decided he wasn't president, you were. Now begins the story. I said, so how are we doing? Because I hadn't been involved in the chapter for a few months. I'd been dealing with family issues. Well, we're broke. We have 28 members. Well, this is exciting as a president. Just feel the opportunity and the excitement in my body, which is rising up, going, wow, pick me! Oh, they did already. My first phone call was to Dave Gordon. He said, Dave, you know that thing you started last year called Camp NSA for your incoming presidents? Can I come? He said, I don't have a problem with it. Talk to Stacy. And Stacy probably remembers this conversation. Maybe he doesn't, because he gets a lot of them. And he said, Bob, you're welcome to come. We don't have any budget for you. I thought, budget for me? I'll pay my own way. This was a matter of desperation. I needed to learn. I needed to learn because all of a sudden I was president of a chapter that had 28 members and was broke. Doesn't that just excite you? Looking back, I'm thinking, what an opportunity. So I went to Camp NSA. And I met 37 people like me, plus the NSA board and a bunch of other people. And I started, we did an email tree back in those days. It wasn't as technological as it is now. And I had a problem, which I had lots of times. I would send an email out to my 37 buddies, go, what do I do now? And inevitably I'd get at least half a dozen of them saying, well, here's what we do in our chapter, Bob. And I'd do it. All of a sudden the other chapters across Canada, by that time we had 8, were going, well, could you help us with our chapter? Because we're having some of those same problems. And so I'm just sharing the wisdom I'm learning from my NSA buddies. Long story short, that next year, NSA decided that, I guess having Canadians show up wasn't a bad deal. So they invited the Canadian leadership to send every single incoming president nationally and the chapter to be part of Camp NSA. Now it's called something else. The bill was there. That's their investment in us. JJ's been there, he'll be there on the board, it'll be his 4th time this time. That's their investment in us in terms of that bridge that's reached out as we've evolved and become the Global Speakers Federation. 13 countries, another one coming. You know? Don't you just excited about that? This is where you should get excited, because this is where the story starts to involve you. You have the opportunity to join a network of amazing people from around the world that are making a difference. That are making a difference, and in some cases making a pretty good living doing so. I have to admit, this industry has been very good to me. You know, it has. I'm probably not on the same level as what Sebastian was talking we should be charging, because the euro is like 1.5 times what Canadian, but if you took that down to Canadian dollars, we're doing all right. But although I have to, if I expand it, can I work in Europe more? Sebastian, do you think if I raise my price and just say that's euros, I can work here, it'll be okay? All right, done deal. Now available in Europe, for your audience pleasure. But the nice thing about all this is it's the people in your life that make the difference. You're going to hear some amazing things this weekend. And you're going to meet some amazing people, and you're going to learn some good techniques, and you're going to take them home, and in some cases you're going to go, now what do I do? Because there's too much to deal with. See what resonates for you. Pick 1 or 2 or maybe at the most 3 things and work on them. Something you do something with is much more valuable than something you write in a book and stick on a shelf and get to go, yeah, I heard this, and then you come to another one next year and you go, I heard that story last year. The question you should be asking yourself is, I heard that story last year, what have I done with it since last year? I call my company Ideas at Work for a reason. I would rather you take an idea and work on it and make it reality than just think it's a good idea. My job is to influence you and to inspire you to take action, to make an impact in your life. That's my job as a speaker. That's my job as a writer. Who was it talking about repurposing and going back and Samantha, yeah, you were doing that. You know, going back, one of the things I'm working on is I'm going back. I've been very successful as a writer, which surprised me, because my mom would have thought this was just nuts, because this was the guy who failed English, or just about failed English, and I would send stuff to her. She would send my letters back to me corrected, you know, because she was an English teacher. You know, for her to see me writing books and then finding out that some of them became bestsellers, she'd be rolling over her grave. It'd just be so cool. You know, to live long enough to inspire your parents and to surprise them. They go, because I remember once she was reading one of my books and she looked at me, she said, where'd you learn to do this? We never saw this talent in school. And I thought, well, I didn't get to write my stuff in school. I got to write other people's junk. Book reports on somebody else's life. Something else on something else, and now I get to write what I'm interested in, what I'm passionate about, what I know moves people, and I find that people like them, and they buy them, and they read them, and they act on them. And they change their lives, because I've added an idea to the mix that's influenced them, and inspired them to make an impact on the world around them. That's the exciting part of this, folks. You have that opportunity every time you open your mouth to make a difference in the life around you, in somebody's life. I tell brand new speakers, and I know there's somebody here. I want you to imagine there's somebody in that audience that so desperately needs what you have to say. If you're lucky, you might find out who. And sometimes you'll find out who 6 months or a couple of years later, where they'll come up to you and go, you know, you were speaking at such and such a date. And I was a pretty low area in my life, but it's changed. I'm doing better now. Or I'm doing successful now. Or I've made a difference and look what I'm doing. Sometimes you don't even know the impact you've had, right? My friend Bill did the foreword for the creativity book we just did last year. And in the foreword, he reminded me of a conversation that I had with him I didn't even remember. This was when he wasn't even on the national board yet. I said, when you're, because I think you were just running, I forget. I said, when you're national president, you will be a great president, and I'll help you any way I can. He remembered it. I didn't. I just was seeing something in this man that I appreciated. And I was simply telling him, because that's my job, to give them hope and to give them help. Does that make sense? That's what building bridges is all about, is reaching out to people and saying, what can I do to make a difference in your life? What can I do to help you be better than you are? To reach those dreams, maybe to have a dream that you never thought you could do. How many of you have dreams that you haven't even done anything on yet? Good. I like to see hands. Because if you don't have dreams, you might as well wake up. If you get dreams, keep sleeping. But if you don't have dreams, you might as well wake up. The exciting people in life take the dreams from sleep to reality. And they put creativity behind it. And they put work. And they put networking. And they put other people's advice and experience to use. One of the things that I have found in this business is that people are more willing to help me than I am to ask. For those who've been around for a while, do you understand that truth? In this industry, I have never met a more wonderful, giving group of people in my life than speakers. When I was on the national board, I'm sure some of my board members would got upset with me because we were fairly new then. I was on the board about year 4 of CAPS. And so they say, well, what about this? And I said, well, let me phone NSA and see if they've got anything that they've done. Because, I mean, why reinvent the wheel if somebody's already done? I remember asking about some of the stuff with our chapters. Stacy's team sent me 3 binders full of stuff. You probably don't even know you did that, but, you know. But that's okay. It was worth it. It helped us. And it helped CAPS grow. But it's a matter of reaching out to other people. It's a matter of being willing to expose yourself. To take a chance. That's what I love about speaking at the GSF functions. I was just in Cape Town in April. I said, if you can let me speak on my birthday, which was the Saturday, I will come. And their theme was breakout. So I immediately envisioned a guy stuck in a box. So I got the white face and the white one of these, and the gloves, and I'm there, you know, getting stuck on this thing, and like having the brainstorm of pulling my phone out and phoning 2 people in the audience, and they came up with their imagining hammers, and they broke the glass box. We even had a sound effect of that. And then I stepped forward and I started with Nelson Mandela's quote. As I went through the door that led to the gate that led to my freedom, I realized that if I didn't leave the angerness and bitterness behind, I would still be in prison. Something different. I've never done mine before. May never do it again. But it worked for that audience. The important thing is doing something that makes a difference for you, that resonates for you. That's what you called authenticity. That's who you are. I'm a short, little, chubby guy. That's who I am. I'm not tall and svelte and a charmer. I'm a comic. I make people laugh. I have fun. I love to travel. We were on the bateau yesterday, and my wife leaned over to me and she said, "I love Paris." And I thought that just made it all worthwhile. I thought, good, I'll stay in the business another year. We'll take a couple of extra gigs so that we can go more places. And one of them will be coming back here someday. Does that make sense? To understand how that works? Now, I'm just going to say one thing in conclusion, because I think we're at that time in my point. You may want to get a picture of this, because I have no idea if this will work. I'm telling you my story, and I'm telling you as I see it, but I don't want you to take my word for it. Just ask.